Hey there, it's Angela here and welcome to Let's Walk London. Today I am walking from Bushy Park to Hampton Court Palace. I will see you there. So we are in Bushy Park during a lockdown as we all try to protect ourselves from the coronavirus. So normally there would actually be traffic where I'm standing. It's actually a road. It feels like a footpath right now. Because the royal parks, this is one of the royal parks. Just so you know, London has 8 royal parks. Bushy Park is one of them. And they have all been closed to traffic. But to encourage us all to go outside and be healthy, get some fresh air and walk during this lockdown, however long that may last. So the royal parks are open to pedestrians, cyclists, dog walkers. And this is a pretty big park. It covers I think 1.099 acres. So it's pretty large. And it's got a lot of deer here. But there's one thing I've learnt with deer. They are really good at hiding. And then they suddenly pop up out of nowhere and your dog says, "Oh, that's a deer," or the deer says, "Oh, that's a dog." Anyway, this here is the symbol of Bushy Park, the Diana Fountain. As you can see, there's a whole load of geese here enjoying the view. They're pretty tame. Spend a lot of time around geese and swans. You learn to go a bit careful around them. These chaps seem pretty calm. So this is the Diana Fountain, after the goddess huntress Diana, not Princess Diana. There's a little information board over there. We'll go and read off it shortly. And it's just so odd that it's so quiet. Beautiful blue sunshine day. It's about 14 degrees, so didn't actually need a coat today. Bit windy, but it's otherwise a perfect day. So that line of trees that we just saw on the way in was intended as a walkway up to Hampton Court Palace, which is just in that direction. It's called Chestnut Avenue. So Chestnut Avenue is 1 mile long and was conceived by, you never guess who, after all my walks with you. Yep, Sir Christopher Wren. So he set it up as a formal approach to Hampton Court Palace, and this was during the reign of William III and Mary II, and they did vast amounts of changes to improve Hampton Court Palace in the way they fancied. And according to one description, it marks the park's zenith in terms of royal ambitions and sophistication. Now often when you come here you go to the Pheasantry Cafe. All cafes are shut at the moment. That would be in that direction. And you have red and fallow deer in the park. But as I said, they're really good at hiding. I haven't seen any while I've been here. So I'm crossing a road at the moment which has no cars on it. It's quite strange. So you can see still lovely lines, orderly lines of trees. Now, it was King Charles I's idea to create an artificial waterway going through the park because Hampton Court Palace was always short of water. So the Longford River was built over 19 kilometres in length, designed by Nicholas Lane, 1638 to 1639, built by hand and took 9 months to complete at a cost of £4,000. So let's have a look at the information board about our Diana statue. As I said, Diana statue we already know was built by Sir Christopher Wren. Is there anything on my walks that wasn't at some point? Other than the deer, there's all sorts of bird life here. Woodpeckers, kingfishers, kestrels. Actually, if you look around, I can't see one at the moment. There's also wild parakeets. So in West London and other places in London, there are flocks of wild parakeets. All sorts of theories as to how we ended up with flocks of wild parakeets. But when you walk in this area, I even get them in my garden sometimes. Get quite a little selection turn up, and they're very noisy at sunset, but I really like them. Right, so here we have an information board about the Diana Fountain. The centrally located Diana Fountain is the iconic image of Bushy Park. It's a complicated structure and apparently an afterthought in the layout of the park, arriving after the planting and extensions of the great avenues of 1689 and 1699. The fountain was placed here in 1713 after previous display at Old Somerset House. Haven't yet done a walk at Somerset House. Can't wait to do that one. Whenever we can go back to walking again. In 1656, the fountain was moved to the old Privy Garden at Hampton Court, courtesy of Oliver Cromwell. It had even been stored in Carpenter's Yard from 1702 to 1713. It is popularly known as Diana, but without accompanying bow and hunting dogs. So the statue is thought by some authorities to represent Arethusa, a water nymph in Greek mythology. So we're going to walk along this path now and head, it's just a few minutes walk from here to Hampton Court Palace, well known obviously as home of Henry VIII. Keep an eye out for deer, but I'm not hopeful personally, though they should be loving it, there's no cars. I saw a warning on the website that apparently the deer have got rather used to approaching humans for food, and there have been a few attacks on humans by deer. Naughty deer. It's an interesting factoid about Bushy Park. During the Second World War, part of Bushy Park became the US Air Base, Camp Griffiths. And it was from here that General Eisenhower planned the D-Day landings. Exciting stuff. I always love those houses over there, back onto the park. I just think what amazing views you've got over the parks from there. Old buildings. Obviously you've got the upkeep of old buildings if you live there. And you're right on the main road that takes you in to Hampton Court and Kingston, which is really busy. So, distant view of the Diana Fountain. There's a car park just over there, and there's a children's playground. Absolutely nothing there at all. So I can't say it's not a challenging time for channels like mine that film walks, mostly around London in my case, although I do hope in the future to film other places in the country, and particularly other countries as well. And I know some of you have sent me cities in different countries than the UK that I could go and visit, and I would love to, absolutely love to. So that is certainly something in my plans for the future. But I must say it's challenging at this moment in time as we all go into lockdown. So I will be certainly attempting to record these types of walks where I can go into public parks while we're able to in my particular area. I won't be taking the trains. I don't really fancy driving into London, though part of me is itching to film a locked down central London. I will also endeavour to film my local town, Kingston upon Thames, in its sort of lockdown mode. See how it looks. Ooh, I can hear a woodpecker. Today is the first day that everyone has had to really knuckle down and work out how those key workers that continue to work are going to do that. And people like me, I work in a university. I've had to shift all my lectures to online, record at home, upload it for my students to see, keep them in the loop on everything that I know that's going on. And we have to decide what to do with their exams. Very, very stressful time for the young people at the moment, and indeed for everybody. But I think today probably was quite a test for families trying to work out how to manage this, and those that are isolating alone for weeks on end. There you are, straight down Chestnut Avenue. And as I said, that's designed to provide a vista. Can't see it so clearly now, but a vista straight through to Hampton Court Palace. Now we're all working on social distancing at the gates. Also, once I've opened and closed the gate, I do actually put some antibacterial on my hands, just in case. So here's the entrance exit at Hampton Court Palace. So I'm going to go through the gate and then wash my hands a sec. So I'm going to cross over the road here. As I said, this is the main road to Kingston. If you head in that direction, you end up at Kingston upon Thames. Just cross. Though technically Bushy Park falls under the jurisdiction of Richmond Council. Right, so there's one of the gates. I don't think you can normally take that. I'm not sure if you can normally. Looks like you probably can. That's one of the gates into the gardens at Hampton Court. Just minorly adjust the Osmo. So everybody doing their social distancing. So we're on the less sunny side of the street here, but this is the side for Hampton Court Palace. So Hampton Court Palace is a royal palace in the borough of Richmond upon Thames. 12 miles or 19.3 kilometres southwest and upstream of central London on the River Thames, which I will take you to. It is served by the Hampton Court Railway station, which I'll actually take you to as well. To the south of Hampton Court Bridge in East Molesey, and by London bus routes if you're a bus fan: 111, 216, 411 and R68. So if you want to come to Hampton Court by train, you go to Waterloo mainline station, and there's a train, is it every half an hour, I think? About every 30 minutes. They may be more frequent than that sometimes. And it's about a 30-minute train journey. I actually quite like the train to Hampton Court. It's a stopping service. So it's quite nice and slow. You get to see around a little bit. So we're walking around the walls now. Very far edges. Lots of little restaurants, coffee shops, businesses along here, and these are the fronts of the houses that I was showing you from within the park itself. And here's the famous tennis court gate there. So even though, you know, we're on a stay at home if you can kind of thing, still a fair amount of traffic coming through here. So as you can imagine, on a normal day it'd be pretty busy through here. Some beautiful old houses here. Hampton Court House is through there. Independent School. Lovely little road there. And a major part of Parkland here as well. And in the distance is actually a car park where visitors, coaches, they often park over there. They're not really allowed to drop off at Hampton Court in front of the palace. There's also some stables over there. Is it Hampton Lodge Stables maybe? Something like that. So here we are walking down a nice tree-lined avenue. The blossoms are coming out. Spring is attempting to be sprung. However, there's a forecast that it's going to get pretty cold again at the weekend. Maybe even snow for the end of March. I was going to show you the gardens, but they closed them a few days ago. Hence we looked at Bushy Park instead. So that's the village of Hampton through there, right on the river. Quite a lot of houseboats and things. Also pretty busy route through, takes you through to the M3 motorway. So along with St James's Palace, Hampton Court Palace is one of only two surviving palaces out of the many that were owned by King Henry VIII. The palace is currently in the possession of Queen Elizabeth II and the Crown. Anybody watch the TV show The Crown? Really not the type of thing I would normally watch. I really enjoyed it. Waiting for whenever they can make another season. All sorts of TV production is halted now and everything. So, good old red telephone box here. So I'll see if I can stand in front with my camera pointing at Hampton Court Palace. So there's an old red telephone box with no actual telephone inside. It does have a car park in here as well. As I said, no buses dropping off, I don't think. They stopped that. So here we are at the palace. Chapel or Sunday services. Some statues up here. Good old dragon-like gargoyle-y things. So here's the palace itself. So the original Tudor palace was begun by Cardinal Wolsey Now, Cardinal Wolsey was quite the minister in the early 16th century. He was actually Henry VIII's Lord Chancellor, and he transformed what was actually an ordinary country house to a magnificent palace. Wolsey wanted to create a grand building where he could host not only the king and the royal court, but also monarchs from across Europe. So he invested huge sums of money to create a palace fit for the king. Wolsey was so successful in his work that Henry eventually took Hampton Court for himself. And he brought all 6 of his wives here. I'm not going to go through Henry VIII's wives. And then it became a hotel, a theatre, vast leisure complex. The king used it to demonstrate magnificence and power in every possible way. So I've taken this information from the Royal Palace's website. He threw lavish banquets. Extravagant court life was demonstrated, and there was fabulously expensive art. In addition to Henry's state and private apartments, where he slept, ate and relaxed, and the Queen's private apartments, the palace contained accommodation for courtiers as well. The style depended on the status of the occupant. So the more important you were, the better you got. And actually in the winter, I'm just remembering as I look ahead, in the winter there's actually a Hampton Court ice skating rink, which is actually really nice. It's very atmospheric. It says here this is the site of the Toy Inn, an ancient hostelry of note, built for Oliver Cromwell's troops in around 1650, rebuilt about 1700, demolished 1840, all sorts. Wow, up to 800 courtiers could accompany, so 800 courtiers could accompany Henry VIII. They all needed to be fed. So the king enlarged and added to the existing great kitchen. In 1603, William Shakespeare's King's Men first performed Hamlet and Macbeth for the new Stuart king, James I. James I's son, Charles I, used the palace to house much of his astonishing art collection. Oliver Cromwell, despite being for the people, actually lived there for a while. He saved the palace from destruction by making it his home. Very much appreciated the fine art, particularly the tapestries, and enjoyed living like a king there. So here we are coming alongside Hampton Court now. So you've got a shop, ticket office, you can have very nice tours. It's actually a great place for a tour. Won't go all the way along. Along here, I'm going to take you across the bridge in a sec. So that's the bridge across the River Thames. And if you head east of here, so now where do you end up if you go east? I mean, Hampton, where does the Thames go when it heads east? And then west you've got Kingston, Richmond and central London. This is Barge Walk. And the Hampton Court train station is just the other side. Normally you would walk, obviously. But during the Hampton Court Flower Show, for example, the boats go back and forth between the station and the flower show to transport thousands of people. And also here, you can pick up the river boats that go up and down the river. So they will continue that way and take you around some of the houseboats over there, little island and everything. And then you head west back down the river towards Kingston upon Thames, Richmond, things like that. So we're back alongside the palace. Within the palace you have the Long Water Canal, which was commissioned by Charles II in preparation for the arrival of his bride, Catherine of Braganza. The couple honeymooned at the palace. Charles II was 1660 to 1685. So the couple honeymooned at the palace, and boats in the shape of swans sailed up the canal in a romantic gesture. Of course, he later moved in his mistress and her kids, but putting that aside. So they've got more parkland over there, and a little bit further along a really nice pub. Can't remember what it's called, it's changed hands a couple of times, but it's really nice. So big changes happened at the palace when William III and Mary II took the throne in 1689. I've already mentioned them in relation to Bushy Park. So they commissioned, surprise, surprise, Christopher Wren. Did that guy ever have any rest time? He seemed to rebuild the whole of London. And now he was way out west. Don't even know how you got here back then. So they asked Christopher Wren to build an elegant new Baroque palace. Now, Wren had originally said he was going to scrap the whole place, demolish it. But instead, he created the spectacular Fountain Court. And as a result, much of the Tudor palace remained intact. Now, all the renovations and change was aimed at creating Hampton Court Palace as a place to rival the Palace of Versailles in France. When he finished work in 1694, as a result, you sort of got two different architectural styles. You got domestic Tudor matched with Baroque. I mean, William and Mary, really made massive changes. And they were responsible for creating. I wonder when we'll actually be able to enjoy it like that again. Anyway, William and Mary were also responsible for creating many of the most spectacular areas of the gardens to complement the new palace. So we're just walking down here. We will actually be walking back again in a sec. As I said, won't go too far. There's also a famous maze. Seems to be they dispute a little bit about its origins. But the maze was first planted in hornbeam, then replanted in the 1960s with visitor-proof yew hedges. But they're now reintroducing the more authentic hornbeam. Now, whereas Henry VIII and Christopher Wren and Wolsey and all that lot turned this into the most spectacular palace possible, by 1737 George II didn't really want to use Hampton Court as a royal palace. So instead it was given over to grace and favour residents. What does that mean? Well, many of them were aristocratic widows in straitened circumstances who were offered free accommodation in return for their husbands' services to the monarch. Let's catch that again. See some gold stuff through there. Tops of the garden area. Now, they were very grand apartments, really, but they weren't particularly comfortable. Residents regularly complained the old palace was perishingly cold. How would you warm a place like this? Damp and had no access to hot water. But even in the mid-1960s, those apartments continued to be occupied by residents, though I read that still a couple of elderly residents living at Hampton Court today. So I'm not going to go any further. The gardens are through there. So I'm going to walk back along to the bridge now. Always love these chimneys. I always think they look amazing. Can you imagine how many fireplaces you need in a place like that to heat it. Queen Victoria opened the palace to the public in 1838, declaring it to be thrown open to all her subjects. It continues to be a magnet, and I have to say it's so busy here in the school holidays in the summer. So millions of visitors come for the grandeur, the ghosts, lots of ghost stories around here, and the art collection. Interestingly, when the railways arrived in 1849, it could really grow the amount of visitors, and particularly on a Sunday. But those Grace and Favour residents weren't that happy. They had had exclusive rights to the palace gardens prior to that. They complained that the gardens became hell on earth. The people come intoxicated, and the scenes in the gardens on the Lord's Day are beyond description. It's stressful for them. One of the newest attractions these days for families is the Tudor-inspired Magic Garden, which was opened in 2016 by the Duchess of Cambridge. Two famous annual festivals here. The Hampton Court Music Festival, which I haven't been to, and the Royal Horticultural Society Flower Show, which I've been to many, many years. It's huge, it's tiring, it's busy, but it's an annual event. I don't know what they're going to do this year. Chelsea Flower Show has been cancelled. I assume this one's been cancelled. I haven't checked. People also come here for the art collection. As I said, you get guided tours. Can't remember if you can wander around yourself. Quite a few little cafes, restaurants, indoors areas, outdoors areas. Not been for a while, a couple of years. So that's the history tour, really. So we're heading back towards the bridge now. And I'll give you a little peek east, down towards Shepperton. So during these tricky times for a channel like mine, where I go around filming in London, and I'm not going to take the train or drive. Be very interested to know any things you'd like to see. So if there's stuff I'm not doing that you think would be interesting, ask away. I'll see what I can do. Like I said, I'm going to try and do my hometown Kingston under lockdown. Maybe Surbiton, which is my local high street. But any thoughts, give them to me. See what I can do. There's the Royal Mitre Hotel. Is that how you say it? Mitre? See the Mute Swan. Fresh food, wine, cask ales. Came here once around the palace for one of those living theatre performances by a theatre group, where you kind of follow the actors around and they kind of make you join in a little bit with what they're doing. It's really good, really enjoyed it. And then we went to the pub over the road, and all the actors were in there having their post-drama drink. Bless them, they were really good. Really good. Actually, I'm going to cross there. It's going fast. So I'm going to cross down here a sec. Then I'm going to show you, because you've seen sort of west towards Kingston and Richmond, I'm going to show you east along the river. So I'm going to press a button. It's actually a very busy road considering how little there is happening at the moment. reliably informed that the source of the Thames is 147 miles in that direction, east of here. In the meantime, we have Sunbury Lock, Molesey Lock. Oh, hold on. Tower Bridge. If you go in that direction for 29 miles, you'll come to Tower Bridge. So 29 miles in that direction. Teddington Lock is just over 4 miles, and Kingston Bridge about 3 miles. And that's west towards the Tower of London and the Thames estuary, where you've been many times on my walks. So I'll just point you in that direction. You can see there's a lot of boats on the marina here. It's actually quite a big marina down towards Hampton. And there's a lock there. I think if you go on a boat trip, they take you, if I recall correctly, through the lock. So you can go up to the tiny little island, which is a car-free island. So just through here you've got the local village. Got little shops, restaurants, coffee shops. Very nice little coffee shop actually in there. Can't remember the name. I went there once before the flower show. I'm going to point you at the train station and then we'll finish the walk. Just thinking actually, I think John Orkin mentioned perhaps doing a walk in Richmond. I feel a bit sad doing walks of great towns and cities, all empty. It wouldn't stop me if I did a walk of Richmond going back another time, when it was thriving and flourishing again, because we all really want to thrive and flourish again, if possible, as soon as possible, when all this is over. So I'm going to stand here and point you over there, where you can see Hampton Court train station. As I said, it's about a half an hour train journey, 30 minutes train journey from Waterloo Station. It's a stopping service, so you get to stop at lots of the intervening stations. But I actually think it's quite a nice journey. So I'll say goodbye to you now. I do hope you enjoyed this walk. I will see you next time. Hey there, well I do hope you enjoyed that walk from Bushy Park to Hampton Court Palace during semi-lockdown. I will see you next time. Bye bye.